In a shocking turn of events, what should have been a routine promotional appearance turned into the entertainment industry's most explosive confrontation in years when Tom Cruise walked off Jimmy Kimmel Live after being relentlessly provoked by the host, leaving audiences and network executives stunned. The red on-air sign illuminated the studio as the audience's applause thundered through the room. Jimmy Kimmel adjusted his tie with a quick tug, flashing his trademark smirk to the camera before turning to address the audience. "Tonight we've got Hollywood royalty in the building," Kimmel announced, his voice carrying that familiar blend of sarcasm and enthusiasm that had defined his hosting style for years. He jumps on couches, jumps off buildings, and occasionally jumps into controversial headlines. "Please welcome Tom Cruise." The studio erupted as Cruise bounded onto the stage with his signature energy, waving to the audience with that million-dollar smile. He wore a tailored navy suit that accentuated his still impressive physique at 62. The Mission Impossible theme played as he jogged toward Kimmel's desk, high-fiving audience members along the way. "Tom Cruise, everybody," Kimmel called out, standing to greet his guest with a handshake that seemed cordial enough to the untrained eye. But those watching closely might have noticed something slightly off in Kimmel's expression, a tightness around his eyes that didn't match his smile. "Great to be here, Jimmy," Cruise said, settling into the guest chair. "Always love coming on your show." "Well, we love having you," Kimmel replied, shuffling some index cards. "Even though your people sent over quite the list of off-limit topics. Makes my job a little challenging, doesn't it?" The comment landed with an awkward thud. Cruise's smile flickered momentarily before returning to full wattage. "Just the usual stuff, Jimmy. I'm here to talk about the film," Cruise responded smoothly, though a slight edge had crept into his voice. Right. The film. Horizon's Edge. Another action blockbuster where you do all your own stunts. Still, jumping off buildings at your age? Impressive," Kimmel said. "Though I guess when you believe you're an immortal Thetan, heights aren't that scary, huh?" The audience's laughter had an uncomfortable quality to it now. Cruise's expression froze, the practiced smile still in place, but his eyes hardening. "I'm proud of the work we did on this film," Cruise redirected. "The whole team pushed boundaries, and I think audiences are going to love what we created." "I'm sure they will," Kimmel nodded. "Your fans are nothing if not devoted." "Speaking of devotion, I wanted to ask, the stunt work on this film was unlike anything we've attempted before," Cruise interrupted, leaning forward. "We developed new camera systems just to capture the sequence where my character has to—" "Yeah, we'll get to all that," Kimmel waved dismissively. "But first, I was wondering if you could clarify something for me. Last week, David Miscavige was in the news again, and since you two are so close—" "Jimmy," Cruise said, his voice dropping several degrees in temperature, "I'm here to discuss the film." The tension in the studio was palpable now. Camera operators exchanged glances. Producers whispered frantically into headsets. In the control room, the director was signaling for Kimmel to move on, but the host seemed determined to pursue his line of questioning. "Oh, come on, Tom. Everyone knows you're the golden boy of Scientology. You can't expect to come on shows like this and only talk about your movies when you're involved with such a controversial organization," Kimmel pressed. "The audience wants to know the real Tom Cruise." "What the audience deserves," Cruise countered, "is professional journalism and respect for guests. Something that seems to be in short supply tonight." The temperature in the studio seemed to drop. Another 10 degrees. A producer stepped closer to the stage, clearly concerned about where this was heading. "Professional journalism? This is a late-night comedy show, not 60 Minutes, Kimmel retorted. "And respect is earned, Tom. Some might argue that when you publicly align yourself with controversial figures and organizations, you open yourself up to questions." Cruise sat back in his chair, jaw clenched. "I've spent decades entertaining audiences, raising hundreds of millions for charitable causes, and pushing the boundaries of filmmaking. I think I've earned basic respect. Fair enough, Kimmel said with a shrug that suggested it was anything but fair. Let's talk about the film then. In Horizon's Edge, you play a spy who's torn between his duty and his family. Speaking of family, how's Suri doing these days? Still not speaking to her dad because of those pesky Scientology disconnection policies? A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Cruise's face went pale, then flushed with anger. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair so tightly. His knuckles turned white. "We're done here," Cruise said quietly, though the microphone picked up every word. "Oh, come on, I'm just asking what everyone's thinking," Kimmel said, dropping all pretense of congeniality. "You come on these shows with your rehearsed stories about stunts and your PR-approved anecdotes, but you never address the real issues. Don't you think the public deserves some honesty after all these years?" Cruise stood up slowly, unhooking his microphone with deliberate movements. "The public deserves better than this, Jimmy. And so do I." The studio had gone completely silent. Not a cough, not a whisper could be heard as one of Hollywood's biggest stars and one of television's most popular hosts faced off in what was quickly becoming the industry's most explosive confrontation in years. "What's wrong, Tom? Can't handle a few tough questions?" Kimmel challenged, standing up as well. "Or do you only do interviews where you have complete control over the narrative?" "You call these tough questions?" "These are cheap shots designed for clicks and views," Cruise fired back, his voice rising with controlled fury. "You're not a journalist, Jimmy. You're not even a good comedian. You're just another talk show host desperate for ratings, willing to ambush guests to get them." The show's band leader looked to the producer for guidance, uncertainty written across his face. Should they play something to break the tension? Go to commercial? Nothing in the show's long history had prepared them for this moment. "At least, I'm not hiding behind a facade," Kimmel shot back. "At least what you see is what you get with me." Cruise let out a humorless laugh. "Is that what you tell yourself? Because what I'm seeing right now is a desperate man who's forgotten the basic principles of his profession. Respect, integrity, professionalism. They should matter, Jimmy, even in your line of work." The confrontation was escalating beyond anyone's ability to control it. Producers were frantically signaling to cut to commercial, but Kimmel seemed determined to have the last word. "Integrity? That's rich coming from you," Kimmel said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Tell me, Tom, does it bother you at all that while you're making these action movies and playing the hero, there are people suffering in the real world because of the organization you help promote? Or does your celebrity shield you from having to think about that?" The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, Cruise stood perfectly still, his expression unreadable. Then something shifted in his eyes. A flash of raw emotion breaking through the carefully maintained celebrity veneer. "You have no idea what you're talking about," Cruise said, his voice dangerously quiet. "No idea about my life, my beliefs, or the work I do behind the scenes. You sit here making judgments based on tabloid headlines and internet gossip." "Then enlighten us, Tom," Kimmel challenged, spreading his arms wide. "Here's your chance to set the record straight. Tell us about the real Scientology, not the sanitized version your PR team pushes." The producer was now physically edging toward the stage, making frantic cutting motions across her throat. In the control room, panic had set in as executives debated whether to forcibly cut to commercial. "This isn't about Scientology," Cruise replied, fighting to maintain his composure. "This is about basic human decency. This is about you ambushing a guest on your show for ratings." "Oh, please," Kimmel scoffed. "You've been in this business long enough to know how it works. No topic should be off limits, especially when you're one of the most powerful figures in a controversial organization." The audience had grown uncomfortably quiet, many shifting in their seats or looking at their phones, unsure whether they were witnessing compelling television or a train wreck they shouldn't be watching. "Let me tell you something, Jimmy," Cruise said, taking a step toward the host. "I've spent my entire career entertaining people, bringing joy to audiences around the world. I've put my body on the line for decades to create authentic experiences for moviegoers. I've raised billions for charity, advocated for artists' rights, and mentored countless young actors. That's my legacy. And Scientology isn't part of that legacy? Kimmel pressed, refusing to back down. You can't compartmentalize your life for the public, Tom. You're asking people to buy tickets to your movies while actively promoting what I do with my personal life is my business, Cruz interrupted, voice rising. Just like your personal life is yours. The difference is, I don't come onto your show and blindside you with questions about your family or your personal beliefs. The difference, Kimmel countered, is that I'm not the public face of an organization with a documented history of enough. Cruz's voice cut through the studio like a whip crack. Several audience members visibly jumped. You want to have a real conversation about faith and personal beliefs? Fine. But this isn't a conversation. This is an ambush designed to humiliate a guest and boost your failing ratings. The comment about failing ratings struck a nerve. Kimmel's face flushed, red. My show is doing just fine, Tom. Maybe that's why you're here promoting your what? Third sequel in 5 years? Running out of original ideas? Several audience members gasped. The producer was now hovering at the edge of the stage, ready to physically intervene if necessary. I've pioneered more original stunts and filmmaking techniques than most people in this industry, Cruz shot back. I've pushed boundaries and taken risks my entire career. Meanwhile, you're recycling the same tired jokes night after night. At least I'm honest about what I do, Kimmel retorted. I don't pretend to be something I'm not. And what exactly am I pretending to be, Jimmy? Cruz demanded, his legendary intensity now fully unleashed. Even Kimmel seemed taken aback by the force of his personality. A regular guy, Kimmel said after a moment's hesitation. Just another actor promoting his movies, when in reality, you're the second in command of a... You don't know me, Cruz said, cutting him off again. You don't know anything about me beyond what you've read in tabloids or seen in carefully edited interviews. You think because I sit on your couch for 10 minutes, you have the right to make judgments about my entire life? Uncomfortable murmurs rippled through the audience. One camera operator whispered to another, "Is this for real, or some kind of bit?" The public has a right to know who they're supporting when they buy a ticket to your movies, Kimmel insisted. The public has seen my work for 4 decades, Cruz countered. They know exactly who I am through the characters I've portrayed and the stories I've helped tell. I've never hidden who I am. Except when it comes to certain aspects of your life, Kimmel pressed. Like your relationship with your daughter or your position within... Don't, Cruz warned, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Don't bring my family into this. But Kimmel, perhaps sensing he'd found a genuine vulnerability, pressed on. It's a fair question, Tom. How do you reconcile being a family man on screen with... With what? Cruz exploded, his composure finally shattering. The outburst was so sudden and forceful that Kimmel physically recoiled. With being a human being who has faced the same struggles, the same heartbreaks, the same challenges as anyone else? You think you know me because you've read some article or watched some documentary? The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Every eye was fixed on the 2 men standing face to face on the stage. I've dedicated my life to entertaining people, Cruz continued, his voice trembling with emotion. I've risked my life countless times to bring authentic experiences to audiences. And you want to sit here and reduce my entire existence to tabloid gossip? Kimmel, perhaps realizing he'd pushed too far, attempted to backpedal. Look, Tom, I'm just asking the questions people want. No, Cruz cut him off, his voice now icily calm. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations disguised as questions. You're trying to provoke a reaction. Well, congratulations, Jimmy. You got one. With deliberate movements, Cruz placed his microphone on the desk. I came here tonight as a professional to promote a film that hundreds of people poured their hearts and souls into creating. I expected the same professionalism in return. Instead, I got this." He gestured between them, a look of genuine disappointment crossing his face. "You know what the saddest part is? You're better than this, Jimmy. Or at least, you used to be." The producer had finally made it onto the stage, positioning herself between the two men. "We're going to take a quick break," she announced to the audience, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I don't think that will be necessary," Cruise said quietly. "I'm leaving." He turned to the audience, his expression softening. "I'm sorry you had to witness this. This isn't what you came here for tonight." Then, addressing the cameras directly, "And to everyone watching at home, I apologize that instead of telling you about a film my team and I are incredibly proud of, you had to watch this spectacle instead." With that, he turned and walked toward the exit. The studio remained eerily silent, the tension so thick it felt suffocating. Kimmel, seemingly stunned by the turn of events, called after him. "Tom, come on, don't be so dramatic. We can still talk about your movie." Cruise paused at the edge of the stage, turning back one last time. "That's the problem, Jimmy. You never intended to talk about the movie. You wanted this." He gestured at the tense scene before them. "Because controversy gets more clicks than conversation." "Well, I hope it was worth it." As Cruise disappeared, backstage pandemonium erupted. Producers rushed to Kimmel, who stood motionless at his desk, a stunned expression on his face. The audience began talking all at once, many already pulling out their phones to post about what they'd just witnessed. The show's band leader, trying to salvage the situation, began playing furiously, but the damage was done. Network executives were already flooding the control room, demanding explanations. Social media was lighting up with clips of the confrontation, spreading like wildfire across platforms. Backstage, Cruise was met by his publicist and team, all of them ashen-faced. "Tom, I am so sorry," his publicist began, but Cruise waved her off. "Don't be," he said, removing his earpiece and handing it to a technician. "Some things are more important than publicity." As his team gathered around him, insulating him from the chaos that had erupted in the studio, a production assistant rushed up, phone in hand. "Mr. Cruise, I just thought you should know. Social media is exploding. People are overwhelmingly on your side." Cruise merely nodded, neither pleased nor surprised. It was never about taking sides. It was about basic respect. Back on the set, Kimmel was frantically trying to regain control of the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, well, that was unexpected," he said, forcing a laugh that fell flat in the tense atmosphere. "We'll be right back after these messages." As soon as the on-air sign dimmed, he slumped in his chair, rubbing his face with both hands. The show's executive producer stormed onto the stage. "What the hell was that, Jimmy?" she demanded. "We had agreed to keep it light." "He's a public figure," Kimmel defended weakly. "These are legitimate questions." "No, they weren't questions. They were attacks," she countered. "And now we've got network executives calling down saying the phones are ringing off the hook with complaints." The gravity of what had just occurred began to sink in. Kimmel looked around at the audience, many of whom were recording videos of the aftermath or typing furiously on their phones. This wasn't going to be contained. By the time the show limped back on air, with Kimmel making an awkward apology and trying to salvage the remainder of the program with a clearly uncomfortable musical guest, the damage was done. Clips of the confrontation had already been viewed millions of times. Comment sections were flooded with viewers expressing outrage at Kimmel's treatment of his guest. The following morning, as Cruise prepared for a different interview on a competing network, his phone buzzed with a notification. The ratings for Kimmel's show had plummeted overnight. A public apology had been issued by the network, distancing themselves from Kimmel's inappropriate line of questioning. More significantly, an internal memo had leaked revealing that several high-profile celebrities had already canceled their upcoming appearances on the show in solidarity with Cruise. The incident had transcended mere celebrity gossip to become a referendum on journalistic ethics and basic respect in the entertainment industry. As Cruise settled into the chair for his next interview, the host greeted him warmly. "Thank you for being here, Tom, especially after last night. I want to assure you that we're here to talk about your film and your incredible career." Cruise nodded appreciatively. "Thank you. That's all I've ever wanted, to share my work with audiences and to be treated with the same respect I show others." The interview proceeded professionally, focusing on the film, the stunts, and the creative process. Watching from home, viewers couldn't help but contrast this respectful exchange with the confrontational spectacle from the night before. The message was clear. In an industry built on relationships, respect was non-negotiable. As for Kimmel, the fallout continued for weeks. His ratings continued to slide as viewers and celebrities alike questioned his judgment and professionalism. He issued personal apologies, both publicly and reportedly privately, to Cruise. But the damage to his reputation lingered, a stark reminder that even in the age of gotcha journalism and viral controversies, some boundaries should remain uncrossed. The incident ultimately became more than just another celebrity confrontation. It became a cultural moment that forced a reckoning within the entertainment industry about the treatment of guests, the ethics of ambush interviews, and the responsibility that comes with holding a platform. In standing up for himself and walking away, Cruise had inadvertently sparked a conversation long overdue in Hollywood and beyond.